Welcome. I'm Kathryn.
And I'm Ella.
And today we are going to be doing a podcast episode on 6 Feet Under and death and society.
We wrote down some discussion questions just to get us started. Do you want to read the first one?
Sure. 6 Feet Under. Each character is extremely nuanced. How does the good and evil that lives in each character blur the lines on heaven and hell? How does the black and white that exists in the notion of the afterlife juxtapose with the nuance of humans? I feel like this is an interesting question, especially when talking about religion within all the characters, because they briefly kind of touch on it. And like, I don't know, like I feel like, are they being driven by religion, by heaven and hell, because there is so much nuance within their characters and like what they're doing? And there's so many moments when you just want to like shake a character and be like, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, it's so but I wonder if religion is like a driving factor for them.
Yeah, I feel like one episode that like reminds me of this question was in one of the beginning seasons when like there was the young gay man who got beat to death and then came to the funeral home, and he was like haunting David, and David had that guilt. So I feel like even if it's not like the good and evil with each character, I feel like it's like a lot of like shame that comes into play, and I think a lot of like motivation for how one wants to live their life comes from like the idea of the afterlife.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's shocking that they don't use religion as much. Like, what I was thinking of was an example where I guess religion wasn't a driving factor at all was when Ruth is just like grieving the loss. Wait, was this the loss of Nate? I think it was the loss of Nate, and like feeling super frustrated, and then Sarah finally, her sister finally steps in, and like nothing's really helping Ruth calm down. Like what her kids aren't saying aren't really helping her, and then Sarah steps in after Ruth is like talking to the rabbi and is, or not the rabbi, the priest, and is like, God is such an asshole, and then Sarah walks in and is like, yes, God is an asshole. And like you can see the like relief that goes on through Ruth, because that like definitely I felt like helped her cope. But yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting because I do feel like in 6 Feet Under there isn't much, like, I feel like not much religion is, like, talked about, and no character is, like, extremely, at least none of the main characters are extremely religious, so I don't see them, like, being motivated based on, like, the afterlife. I feel like it's more, like, maybe, like, perceptions of, like, how they're viewed. Like, I feel like definitely in the beginning seasons, like David, just to bring him up again, just like I think he was wanted to be viewed as this like great guy.
Definitely.
And then I feel like Ruth a little too. I feel like she wants to like we see her definitely like Ruth become more like independent and more like less involved in that, but in the beginning season she like really wants to have the perfect family and be a good mom.
Yeah. I agree. I also feel like they look to Nathaniel, the dad, for like how they're being viewed, because as he continues to pop up, and like there also the lines of like death and life are kind of intertwined, because he's there giving the kids like affirmations or like advice, and like clearly they really care about like the way that he thinks of them, and that's like on their mind. So that also I feel like is a motivator more than religion, I would say.
Yeah, me too. And okay, the next question is, when dealing with loss, are healthy and productive synonymous? Is it healthy to become overwhelmed with anger and sadness, to put your life on pause to deal with loss? And is it productive in dealing with loss? I came up with this question, and I feel like, it might be, just to like explain it, I feel like, I don't know, a lot of the like productive ways I think like I grieve and like cope with loss, maybe like to feel like that anger and like to take a step back. And I feel like with loss you become like so overwhelmed in emotion, and it's such like a chemical reaction that's going in you just feel like so confused. So I feel like it may not be like what is like helping you short term might not be like the most the healthiest way to cope.
Yeah, but like with stages, I feel like the thing about like grieving, and what we've talked a lot about in class, is that it just looks different on everyone, and there really can't be like a set of rules or like script on how to healthily grieve. And it's definitely interesting looking at the show and seeing how people grieve, because there's kind of like a way about it that like when you watch someone grieve, it's like if they're doing a certain thing, it's perceived as like crazy or like ridiculous. Like the one person, the husband of the religious wife that ran into the street from the flying bodies, he's like, yeah, this was all meant to be. And like, I think it's David or Nate. I think one of them is like, you need to grieve. You need to feel these emotions. So I wonder if that feeling of like, oh, this is all like his grieving method of like, oh, it's all okay, whatever, and not really addressing any like actual feelings, if that is like healthy or productive. Yeah. But like for him, it seems like it is, but also is that just like pushing his emotions further down?
Yeah, I feel like that ties back into like the religion aspect of things, because I feel
not to go back to that.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the time, like especially within religion, like we hear like they're in a better place now and like things like that, and it does comfort a lot of people, but I think it is really frustrating for a lot of people to hear, like, when they just, like, lose someone super close to them, to hear, like, well, they're in a better place now.
It's part of a bigger picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, but, yeah, it's definitely interesting to see the different grieving styles. There was something else I was going to say, but I forgot. Yeah. Should we go to the next question?
Yeah, we can.
Portrayals of anti-heroes are a very modern phenomenon. It is easy to have a story with clear good and evil characters. Another show I can think of that does this nicely is BoJack Horseman. Why do you think the characters in 6 Feet Under elicit such polarizing opinions?
I think I feel like the characters just seem so real. I remember in class, like just our last class, like someone was like, I can like I don't know, what did she, like, being cheated on, like, I can't forget, like, I can't forgive someone for, like, I'd rather, like, die than be cheated
She said, on. I have a bigger fear of being cheated on than death. Which is crazy.
But I feel like that is just, like, from everyone's own lived experiences, that's, like, I know me and Kathryn, like, we really, like, liked Nate, and we just thought he was, like,
we're big Nate fans.
But in the classroom, like, a lot of people really, like, don't empathize with Nate, so I feel like it's just, like,
Yeah, definitely, like, how people can connect with different characters, and like you were saying, like, it's so real, and I feel like that's what makes the show so good, is that there's phases for, like, each and every character. There's so many different phases where you go through where you're like, oh, I love them or I hate them. And just, like, the decisions that they're making. And so there's not really any way to say that, like, there's an evil character and a good character.
Yeah, that's...
Except for Maggie. She's evil. No, I'm just kidding. But I don't like Maggie.
I think, but I feel like that's, like, why it is so interesting. Just because I feel like maybe towards I don't know, I feel like each character does, like, a lot of super, like, could be perceived as, like, awful stuff.
Yeah.
But, like, I feel like there's always, like, a certain set of people rooting for, like, their character. I feel 100%. Like... Yeah.
I agree. And it definitely is super similar to BoJack Horseman, where, like, the main character, you're, like, you die for him, but also he's just kind of a screw-up.
Yeah. But I feel like that's why it's interesting, and, like, I feel like there's not that many depictions where it is, like, you're not rooting for, like, the main character. Like, it's just, like, it kind of feels like you're trauma bonded with them almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And you're not, like...
I agree.
Yeah.
It's, like, an emotional attachment. Like, in the same way that you would love, like, a friend or a family member where you're, like, I just... Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about Nate.
But... Yeah, I feel like in my freshman year, like, Rhetoric of the Mind English class, we read a lot of, like, Sylvia Plath and books where, like, the main character isn't, like, a reliable source and may not even be, like, a good person, but it's just, like, over time when you're, like, reading a book or watching a show, you just, like, grow a, like, it is, like, it's, like, kind of parasocial, but, like, you do grow, like, this bond with them 100%. And you want to, like, see them succeed.
Same with my favorite show, Fleabag, which is the same thing. Like, the main character, you become, like, it's a very like personal show where the main character like talks to the camera kind of, and it is like a relationship, but like she's just like screwing up the whole time, and you're like so frustrated, but at the same time like it's the best show because she's one of the best TV characters. So.
I feel like it's also interesting. I feel like it's like A Little Life is one of my favorite books, and it's like very long. Like some people say it's like misery porn. It's like it's like, I don't know, it's like very traumatic, and you're going through like the highs and lows. And I feel like there's some people that really like appreciate media like that, like how you were saying like Fleabag, like it's like kind of like you're watching and you're like expecting to be disappointed. And I like just want, and I feel like with 6 Feet Under, it kind of like I don't know, you're not gonna like leave feeling like satisfied after each episode. So I wonder like what
draws people to it. Yeah, I mean, with each episode starting with a death, like it's like gonna be sad, and it'll be interesting to see the finale and how it'll end, because I feel like we're gonna be disappointed.
I think it might just be like the comfort in like realizing like life is weird, and there's like people as like weird as like, I don't know, weird as you.
Yeah. Do you have any like predictions?
I'm not sure.
I know. I actually don't think I really do. I mean, I think Brenda's gonna have her baby. Well, because her water broke, so. Obviously. And
I don't know. I feel like it's like we're at a place where it's like kind of impossible to just like tie it in a bow and be done with it. So
I agree. But I guess that's the thing of life.
It is.
There's no tying of the bow, which is weird. And it's weird like going towards an end of a show at the same time as an end of the semester, because you're like, everything's close. Like me and Ella have been very sentimental the past past like week, maybe month, honestly, just like with everything coming to a close. So it'll be, I feel like 6 Feet Under coming to a close is gonna feel like even more of like an ending and feel sad.
Yeah, I think just like the permanence of it like being over is kind of scary.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. All right.
Yeah, and the next question is, Brenda has very like complex feelings towards Nate towards the end of the show. Why is it expected we place the dead on a pedestal? It almost seems unnatural to hold resentment towards the dead. Why do we think this is?
So interesting. I think the word like unnatural to hold is like emphasis on that, because it is like, if someone like lost a parent or something like that, or anyone, and then they were just like, I hate it, or like, we would be like appalled, because it is like we put them in such like an honorable position. But like Brenda's such a good example where like she also, it's so clear that she's feeling so much like anger, but like it's so complex. Like, how do you possibly deal with the grief of your husband cheating on you, asking for a divorce, and dying the next morning? Like, that is literally insane. And so I think when she was like, we talked a little bit about this in class, but when she dropped her daughter off and was like, I can't take care of her right now, and then Ruth was like, that's crazy, that's so immature, I would never put my kids up. That never happened to you, babe. They're like, the grieving that it must take has got to be insane. So yeah, poor Brenda. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I like just read this like New York Times article about how like more Americans like now than ever are going no contact with their parents.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I feel like it is like more of like a recent thing to like, if your parents are like, or like the people around you are like awful people like impacting your life, like cutting them off is like a more modern thing. And I don't know, like because I feel like even like thinking of like my grandparents, I feel like if like they would like look so down, like if they're I don't know, I feel like they've gone through like rough lives, but they're like, there's that expectation like when someone dies, like you speak super highly of them, and I don't know, I think it's just weird.
It is really weird. Like, imagine having like a funeral where everyone's just like hating on you.
I know, but like if you deserve it.
If you deserve it.
But then what's the point of coming together?
Coming together.
I do think like for Brenda, like I can't even like comprehend like all the intensity.
Me neither. That had to have been the worst 24 hours of like anyone ever. Oh, maybe not. But it just, like, gosh. Yeah, I don't know.
But, like, how do you think you, like...
Yeah, what would a healthy grieving in that situation look like? Because it's not fair for her. I mean, like we were saying, it's not fair for her to be expected to just be like, this was my husband. He was perfect. That one scene in the hospital when Nate, when they thought he was still alive, and they thought Maggie was Nate's wife, and they were like, oh, Miss, whatever their last name is, Fisher. Miss Fisher. And Brenda was like, I'm the wife. Like, that, oh my gosh, it's just so crazy. And why was Maggie even there? Yeah, well, she should not have been there any of that.
When they were burying Nate, and Maggie was just like
there. And she should not have been there. That's unhealthy grieving.
That is
for Brenda.
I know.
Like, I feel like
if you put yourself in Maggie's shoes, though, do you think like you would deserve to be there?
No.
Me either.
I truly think and I'm not just saying this, if I was in Maggie's shoes, I would be like, I need to back up right now.
I would, like, feel so... Just shame. I feel like it's just, like, a guilty shame.
I would feel really guilty, and I would feel like I need to give the family some space, and I need to just grieve on my own for that, because...
But that's the thing, with most characters I can have sympathy for, but yeah, there is something about Maggie where it's just, like...
She's just irking. I just do not like her.
And
I also just don't like George.
That's what I was just gonna
say. Yeah, exactly.
There's just like something off-putting.
There really is. But yeah.
Go
ahead.
Well, I was just gonna talk. Did you read this book too?
Yeah, I read this book.
Well, there's a book, I'm Glad My Mom Died, by Jeanette McCurdy. And yeah, me and Kathryn both read it, and when we were brainstorming questions, like, this book really, like, resonated with what we were just talking about, and the whole book, she's, like, kind of going through, like, her abusive relationship with her mom, and then, like, once her mom passed, like, that grieving process.
Yeah.
And yeah, just...
This book really speaks, on this. But, like, one of the lines is, why do we romanticize the dead? We can't be honest about them, especially moms. They're the most romanticized of anyone. Which is really interesting, I think. Because, yeah, it is like you were saying, like, with the family structures now, like, it is so expected that, like, you will respect your parents and stuff like that. So I guess, I don't know, it's like, is it a positive thing to be able to ghost your parents? I couldn't come up with a better word than ghost. Like, is it a positive thing, do you think, or more of a negative thing?
Well, I don't know. I feel like it's just, like... I feel like I don't know, most of the time, no contact, like, especially with breakups, it's, like, no contact, it's, like, super hard, but it, like, but it is, like, the best way to do it, like, it is, like, the most, like, productive way, and it, like, helps you heal and, like, get that person, like, out of your life, and
helps
out of
you
your,
grieve.
Out of your daily routine, but I feel like with parents, they're, like, so, like, they're a part of you, so I feel like it is, like, kind of hard to, like, even when you do go no contact, they're a part of you.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it just depends on the situation. Because, like, obviously in this situation, her mom was, like, a horrible, horrible person. So it's, like, good for her for, like...
There's, like, this nurse on TikTok, like, she's a hospice nurse, and she makes videos about, like... just, like, going through her day, and I saw this one on my For You page that she was, like, a lot of the times we have, like, terminally ill, like, parents who, like, their, like, children do not speak with them, and they, like, make me give the call to, like, say, like, your dad's dying, like, do you want to come see him? And a lot of the time it's, like, still a no, and, like, how hard it is to deliver that news.
That's so interesting. One of my half-sisters has no contact with my parents, and I'm just, like... my dad's old. like genuinely, what are you gonna do? Like, are you literally never gonna talk to him again? And, like, it started from, like, the no contact, this is just getting into it, but it started from, like, valid reasons, but at this point, it is just, like, kind of petty, so it, like, bothers me personally. But, yeah, I
feel like, that's, like, a normal, I feel like with my dad, I, like, was gonna, like, I, like, don't see him very much, so then I thought, like, no contact would be, like, the best thing, and then I, like, in my senior year of high school, like, I lost a friend super close to me, and then, like, I feel like just, like, the permanence of that, like, death made me, like, realize, like, I don't know if, like, my dad died And oh my god,
we thought our video ended.
And I was like not speaking to him if I like would be like okay with that.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
It is weird. It's very complex. But
and
yeah, is there
one of the other like I forget which article it was, which like book it was, but it was like saying how like the relationship with the mom, like leaving the womb, that's like your first like death, like your separation from your mom. So I think like especially with like teenage girls like and like their mom, it's just like there's so much intensity within that relationship.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to, and that's why it is like we put so much pressure on it. But then also if you have a shitty mom, that sucks.
Yeah.
Is there anything else from here?
Yeah, I feel like this part, it says, my mom didn't deserve her pedestal. She was a narcissist. She refused to admit she had any problems, despite how destructive these problems were to our entire family. My mom emotionally, mentally, and physically abused me in ways that will forever impact me. And then, I just feel like that, like, I don't know, the, like, I feel like it's, also, like, parents expect you to respect them, and I feel like part of it is, like, you do respect your parents, but is it, like, they should, like, they should earn your respect? Because I feel like I don't know, it is, like, parents, like, when they know what they're signing up for, like, I'm grateful my mom, like, fed me and housed me, but it's, like, you're having a child, like, I'm grateful for it, but, like...
that's kind of the expectation.
'Cause, like,
Yeah, I agree. Oh, that's interesting. But yeah, that book is good, and it definitely talks about, like, the grief. Having complex grief in general. Okay. Does a fear of death keep us safe? Is it... This is, like, completely switching, like, categories, gears, whatever. Does a fear of death keep us safe? Is it productive or holding us back from total liberation? I feel like this is kind of, like, similar to the death drive and, like, what... like, how we're prone to, like, self-destructive behavior. But I guess in this, it's kind of saying the opposite. Like, is the fear of death keeping us safe? And I don't know. I talked about this in one of my essays, but, like, our whole childhood kind of is, I mean, depending on your childhood, I guess. But, like, is kind of about rules of, like, don't look both ways before you cross the street. Or, like, be safe, be careful, don't get in a car with strangers, which is probably good. But it's, like... all of those things are, like, protecting us from danger, harm, and death. And so the constant, like, ingraining of that in our brains, like, ultimately is going to create sort of a level of anxiety that, like, we're going to be thinking about death all the time. And, like, how does that carry us into our future of, like, keeping us from doing certain things? But also, when does that become a good thing? When does it become a bad thing? I don't know.
I think it's, like, everything in moderation, but I feel like at least for the people that I have always found inspiring, it has been, like, more of the, like, Nates than Davids, where it's, like, I feel like David gets very, like, held back.
Definitely.
By, like, I don't know. And I feel like Nate was more, like, willing to take, like, risks.
Yeah,
so
the motorcycle.
Yeah.
The running.
The running. So,
I don't know.
Like, I don't know. I feel like I have always, like, admired people who, like... are able to be, like, liberated from this fear, who, like, do the things that, like, like, I'm, like, so scared of flying, and, like, the people who are able to, like, fly places and, like, solo travel, like, that has always been super inspiring to me. But, I feel like I get super anxious, so I feel like it is, I don't know, I feel like anxiety is, like, an innate part of life, just because of what, I feel like rules are embedded in everyone,
right?
But I feel like it does get to a point where
it's too much.
It is too much.
Well, it is, like, anxiety is such a, like, physical, like, natural response to when we used to literally be afraid of death, and now we have that at such a higher concentration that, like, that's where I feel like it's becoming an issue. And I just think also in general, like, our generation is a very, very anxious generation, and I think that keeps us from a lot of things. But I think the actual, like, fear of death ultimately is probably a good thing and, like, necessary. But I just think that, I think that we have taken a lot more as death, where it's like embarrassment now gives us the same fear as death, or like I can't think of anything else besides embarrassment, or like an awkward social interaction, or like giving a presentation in class, getting called up to teach the class. It's going to give us the same anxious reaction as death. So I feel like that's where it's become a problem.
Yeah, I think it's also like our need for like control, like especially when we think of like outside things, because we do get a lot of like anxiety about like giving a presentation and being embarrassed, but I think like thinking about like the people we love, like I feel like it's like a lot of responsibility, and like I don't know, at least for me when I was like going to college, I remember like at the retirement home I was talking to like Chuck, and I was saying like if I'm like in California, I'm like so scared if something happens to my family, like that would give me so much like anxiety, but it is just like I have no control over that situation, and I feel like it's hard, like even if I was in Colorado there'd be like nothing I could do, so I feel like anxiety also comes from like death, that's like inevitable, there's like nothing we can do, and I feel like just the fact that it's like completely out of our hands.
Totally. One of the few things, I mean, there's a lot that is out of our control, but I guess that's like a permanent thing.
Like an
inevitable thing that like we literally have no control over, so obviously it's going to give us more anxiety.
That's why I feel like death is so interesting, because I feel like it is like one of the only things that's like inevitable, but invokes like such like a strong like and like grief and like loss. I feel like it was like we read one of these articles in class, and it talked about just like how like chemical the like dealing with loss is, and how there is like something going on in your brain that it like isn't just like an emotional reaction, there is like
it is physical. Same as anxiety.
And I feel like it's hard for some people to like comprehend that, but we're all like as humans, when we experience loss, it's not just like in our heads, it's like something is biologically going on in our bodies. But I don't know, it's inevitable.
It is crazy. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to read the last question?
Yeah. From social media to violent video games, our abnormal exposure to violence and death has risen dramatically within our generation. How has opening our phone in the morning and to see starving children in traumatic scenes impacted our sensitivity towards death? How is this similar to the contrast of funny versus emotional deaths portrayed in the show?
I just think it's interesting because we obviously throughout the whole course of the show we see so many deaths because it always starts with one, and some of them it's like purposefully funny, where it's like, you know, when the cat went in the hot tub and the lady that ran into the street with the bodies, like all of that, and it's like meant to be funny, and then there's some that are like obviously really meant to be sad, but it's like at the end of the day it's the same thing that's happening. So I just think that that's interesting.
Yeah, I think we definitely are like desensitized to seeing. I feel like that's like also comes from a lack of empathy that we're facing. Like I read this book by Bell Hooks, this philosopher, and it's like all about love, and it just talks about our culture today is very, very less like without like having a religion, where like we don't feel like that sense of connectedness and community, and we have to find another way to find it, because I do feel like, I don't know, when we like are surrounded by something I am thinking of is just like what's happening in Gaza. I feel like it's like just like if you truly think about it, like it just makes you feel like physically ill, but since we're seeing it over and over and over again, I feel like it's just like easy for people to like forget 100%. About and not like realize the severity of it.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like it's such a scary thing how desensitized we are, and especially in a situation like Gaza where like we're seeing all these photos, which is scary, but also like they're there for a reason, to try and like, you know, spread awareness, and like it's like kind of shoving it in people's faces in a way that's like, you need to care about this in a good, I think that's a good thing. Like I'm not against that at all, but I think it's also like, it's also ruining our sensitivity towards death. So like, how do you balance like being informed and like being confronted with things that are happening outside of your bubble, while also like remaining emotional and being able to still like feel that emotion. And I think it just takes like a lot of intention of like not just like scrolling past. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is just hard because we are exposed like with like social media to so much. Like, I don't know, I feel like it's like kind of, it is like a really like fine line on when like you are like carrying everything with you and that's being a negative thing. But I do think like it is important to carry like the things happening in the world with us. But I just feel like with this like increased like sense of knowledge because of like the news and like international things, like I feel like it is, I don't know, it is like hard to not carry all of that with you.
Right.
But it's like you can't all the time.
Right. You can't, or else you won't be able to carry anything.
Yeah.
I agree.
And like I think school shootings as well. I think that's like in like America especially. I feel like it's like such a weird concept to think about, and like a school shooting will be on the news, and just it's like
it feels so normal, and it is so abnormal.
And I think it is weird because like death in like those like large cases, it is like I feel like we're able to like get past that, but it is like when someone like close to you dies, or even like someone you kind of know dies, it
impacts the whole community.
Yeah, it's like such a big thing. But then there's like 50 like children are dying. And
it's literally like incomprehensible to think about like the impact that it's having. I think
especially just like the funeral home aspect also, like 6 Feet Under, that like really desensitizes like them to death. Like totally. It is like just like they're like seeing a dead body like every single week, and I just feel like I don't know.
And I wonder how that impacts their grieving processes and like the way that they deal with death compared to like their family compared to a family that doesn't.
I feel like with like Nate though, like we saw that a little, just like I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Like even just them being able to like carry Nate's body out into the dirt when they are burying him, like I don't think we were talking about this while we were watching the episode. Like if someone that I loved died, I don't think I could just like carry their body out like that. Like that just seems so scary. But also they've been exposed to so much.
And I feel like you were saying, Brad, how like it is like best for someone who's kind of like George, because when we saw him like reading the eulogy, we were like, sit down, George. It's like,
we were upset.
Kind of like it does make sense to have someone like more removed who's able to like conduct themselves and like control their emotions.
Yeah, I agree.
To be able to do that, it's just...
Yeah. Okay, that wraps up our questions. For our last segment... Wait. Okay. I think that's better. For our last segment, we're going to be playing Kiss, Marry, Kill with 6 Feet Under characters. And the characters we've chosen are Nate, Rico, and Billy. Do you want to go first?
This is hard for me because I would always say like, it is hard. Oh my gosh, I usually would say marry Nate, and like
but he's dead.
Well, I don't want to.
Just kidding.
And if he's alive, I don't know, because he was like such an. I don't know why I have this like weird.
No, I feel it. I love Nate.
But then I think about what he did to Brenda, and I'm like, that's so disgusting. But it is like I like him way more than I like Rico and Billy.
See, I really like Billy.
Billy just gives me some sort of heebie-jeebie.
Well, it's because he's in love with his sister. That is the worst. But I really love Billy, and I like Billy and Claire.
Yeah.
But Gabe will forever have my heart.
I like Gabe a lot. I think it is, I don't know. I don't know, like, because Nate is bad.
I know.
But there is just, like...
I think I'd still marry Nate.
Maybe me too. I think marry Nate, kiss Billy, kill Rico.
I think... You know what? I'll do the same.
What Rico did, like, really hurt me. Like, I was not expecting... I don't
He hurt you.
Yeah, I'm the victim.
Yeah.
I was just not I don't know.
I know.
And I think
I liked him a lot at the
beginning. But that's the thing. I think his whole thing was, like, being, like, the normal guy. Like, everyone can relate to.
Yeah, and he was also... I feel like he was trying to be, like, the perfect father, the perfect man, and he was, like, homophobic. So, like, you know...
Yeah, that kind of...
Like, that tracks to him thinking he's the perfect man. But he was not. He was not.
By no means.
All right. Anything else to say?
I don't think so. I'm really, like, excited and anxious to see where the final takes us.
Me too. We've been looking forward to this. We've loved this class.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We're sad that it's ending.
Yeah, we're really sad. This is, like, the first and last class me and Kathryn will ever take together.
Yeah, it's true. All right.
Bye.
Bye.